Greetings to everyone in viewer and listener land, and welcome to the Monday edition, the Manic Monday edition of the Rundown. My name is Mike Poworski. I will be your host today. I do not, however, do this show by myself.
No, you do not, sir. It is my pleasure. My name is Craig DeLuz, to be your co-host for today, coming at you from the left coast, from behind the Iron Curtain, otherwise known as the Sierras, in the state of California, talking to you about 2A News with conservative views. Mikey, how was the weekend?
Oh, listen, you know what? It was actually a really good weekend. I worked, Saturday and Sunday. I do that all the time. But I got a bunch of stuff done, got most of my yard cut also, and got a new bottle or two for the fake display behind me. So it all worked out well. Yeah.
Well, you know what's funny? So Friday, I spent pretty much all day, half the day. Once we got off with the program, I went over a buddy of mine's house, and it was literally just sat in a pool and drank bourbon and ate heathen chicken. That was pretty much my Friday. Saturday, went out golfing. Now I will say this: it was like 100 degrees. So by the time we got to the end of it, man, it was like, okay, I just want this game to be over. That and my golf game.
Well, Craig, that's because of the heathen chicken. If you'd been eating the Lord's chicken, you'd have been fine. You'd be snappy. You'd be ready to go right now.
I'd have been ready to go on Saturday, even in 100-degree weather. I'd be like,
yeah, exactly right. You float along like with the Lord's chicken.
But heathen chicken tastes so good.
Oh man, you make 3 break putts like you wouldn't believe. It's amazing. Yeah.
Anyway, and then yesterday was my only real work. Well, I can't call it work day. I redid my wife's closet, but. It was a fun weekend nonetheless. Very tiring weekend, although it was a fun weekend.
You got to work for her, so that worked out.
There you go. There you go. For my woman.
There you go. Hey, Craig. Before we get too deep into the program, producers are telling me I should be pumping the products here a little bit earlier in the program. So I want to talk about our sponsor from Gorilla Machining. Gorilla Machining. This week, same as last week, they're going to be giving away a lower parts kit for one of America's rifles. So here's the lower parts kit. Lower parts kit. Look at that. It's 3D. It's coming at you. So there's just different color bags and all that stuff in there as well. And with the lower parts kit also goes a nice T-shirt from our good friends at Gorilla Machining. Don't know the size of this one either, so you'll just have to work it out, stretch, diet, lose weight, gain weight, whatever to make it fit. So that's just the way it goes. So
see, this is how my
Gorilla Machining. Check out our good friends at Gorilla Machining, and now we'll be giving those away this Friday on Freedback Friday. Freedback Friday, for those that don't know, Freedback Friday is where we give away free stuff during the feedback section of the program on Friday.
Exactly. The whole goal is to help you guys, conversate and communicate with us. So to encourage you to do so, we provide incentives.
You'll never hear me say that word you just said. Converse. It's converse or have a conversation. Just so you know. So that's what I have. A couple of trigger words, Craig. That's one of them.
What was one of those trigger words?
You said conver, and then I won't even finish it. I can't finish it.
Conversate.
Yeah, that's not a word.
Oh,
it's not a word.
I am not above making up words. Just so
I'll
you
make
know,
up words too, but
just if I've made it up, let me know so I can claim it.
That's one of those army words that people would make up and put it down in writing like it was real. I'm like, listen, you have to know the difference between words we make up just because we want to make them up, and then you can't use them in official, paperwork. Just so that would be one of those words that I would try and help people with. So I'm sorry. That's you brought up a part from my past there with correcting people.
Did I is that a trigger word?
This is not so much a trigger. This is really what would happen. We would sit around and say and literally just make up words in the army, right? And then you'd see it on an official document, and you'd be like, "Dude, it's not a real word." Well, we say it all the time. That doesn't make it real. We've got to know the difference. So, and that would be one of those words. So,
well, kind of like irregardless.
Exactly right. Yeah, regardless of how irregardless is said.
They both mean the same thing.
They mean exactly the same thing. Yeah, that was another word. Yeah. So, oh boy. All right. So let's jump into some stories here. Let's get away from Mike's horrible past and move into the first story. First story here is Time Magazine has finally recognized that it's a people issue, not a gun issue. Now, Craig, I want to give you the chance to open this story because I think you and I have both selected different portions of this story for different reasons. I think we're going to end up in the same place at the end, but I wanted to give you the opportunity to talk about what went on in this story.
All right, so to make a long story short, and never is ever a story in Time magazine ever a short one, but I'll make it I'll make it.
It's like a Rolling Stone article. Yeah,
it really is. But that's always kind of been Time magazine.
Yeah.
Well, now Time the website.
Yeah.
But you know, we argue a lot. We talk a lot about how, look, blaming firearms or blaming the tool is wrong-headed when it comes to trying to reduce the amount of violence that takes place in this country that surrounding firearms or utilizing firearms. We've always said it's a violence issue, not a gun issue, not a gun violence issue. It's a people issue, not a tool issue. Well, in this particular article, one of the things that they're noting was that there were a number of things that occurred as a result of the pandemic, whether it was kids not being allowed to go to school, people being isolated and stuck at home, increases in economic uncertainty, and all of these things that they pointed to. And they're saying these were the reasons why we saw in major cities the number of incidents involving violence involving firearms increased so dramatically. In fact, they note that it's about 30% increase in major cities across the United States. Now, there's a lot to argue that are problems with this article. First and foremost, the fact that, I don't know, when you stopped enforcing laws and then you let criminals out on the street, of course, you're going to see an increase in crime and an increase in violence. But at the very least, I want to give them kind of a C- A for, or an A for effort, a C- for effort, because at least they acknowledge that guns were not, in fact, the problem. It is a people problem, and I think it's a good start in terms of helping actually address the increase or the amount of violence that take place in our community. And that was kind of my big takeaway, or at least one of my takeaways from this particular piece. But I understand, Mikey, yours is a little different, although I think, like you said, I think we wind up in the same place.
Yeah, Craig, the one thing that I noted from this was immediately that, let me give you the authors' names here: Eddie Bocanegra, Erica Ford, and Mike McBride. And we've seen McBride's work before. It's crap. It's anti-gun crap is what it is. We've seen this kind of thing from them before. That the solve for this is money. We need more money. We need $5 billion to put towards social programs, to talk to the youth about this, which is great, Craig. But it's always the money is the answer. We need more money because now we have a government that likes to give out money for social programs. So we're going to take that money and we're going to do this. Not that the last one didn't. They did that as well. So it's about the money. They do admit that there are some like you mentioned, Craig, that some of the items that where enforcement is gone, we should probably be having enforcement again. So that was almost like secondhand that they said that, because they said you can't do this with just money alone. We have to have these social programs to do this. But the reason that they started this article, and this is what got me, and they really lost me after this, is that their quotes are that gun violence is the leading cause of deaths of young black males. Gun violence is the leading cause of deaths of young black males. So I did my own research. I went to the CDC first off. The CDC says that's not the truth. CDC says 1, heart disease, 2, cancer, 3, unintentional injuries, and 4, then homicide. I searched more. I found the University of Michigan, go Wolverines. Number 1, accidental, 2, suicide, 3, homicide, 4, heart disease, and 5, cancer. So you start off your trying to claim us and get us on your side with lies. I mean, I don't know. They don't cite where their study came from. They just know that it's the leading cause. I mean, I think that their leading cause source must be a Facebook meme, because it can't be found anywhere else with simple searches looking for the truth.
It's probably the Gifford Law Center or the Brady campaign or Everytown. Right. No, you're 100% correct. But then again, we all know that they're not above lying.
Correct. And I think that's my point. If you want to start off your story and your analysis with a lie, that's where I finish following your story.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I think in particular when they start talking about these things, what happens is that in the study they probably specifically narrowed down, okay, so let's find between the ages of 14 to 25 black and brown males, and then they, what they do is they keep whittling down the group that they're looking at until they arrive at gun violence or violence involving firearms as the number one cause, as the number one non was it non-physical or non-health related cause,
which is the absolute.
You see how I start whittling down until I create a universe where what I said was true, and then I put a little asterisk, if I even bother to do that, on what the final number is.
Which is the absolute opposite of the scientific research method. is the way they did it. They went and found a problem. They went and found a solution to a problem rather than found a problem and then went and discovered the solution.
Well, but unfortunately that's what's being taught both in law as well as in journalism or these days, is not deductive reasoning, where you pull in all of the data, all of the information, and you deduct and you come up with a conclusion. They're taught an inductive method, which is really what the whole, postmodernism, social justice, critical race, all of that is all about. It's, here's your predetermined conclusion. Okay, now we're going to go back and we're only going to pay attention to data and information that supports our already predetermined conclusion. That's inductive reasoning. And unfortunately, inductive reasoning really has, the only value it has is in helping you develop the ability to win an argument by creating a case to win that argument. But that's all it really does.
Yeah.
It doesn't really solve or identify problems or issues or concerns.
Right. Listen, I think you and I, like we started out this conversation with, both agree that this is an individual issue. This is a personal issue. This is a people issue. This is not a tool issue. Does funding is funding required? Sure, is funding required, but you need to identify where it goes correctly, as opposed to the methods used to determine the outcome here by these three butt clowns.
Well, what's amazing to me about this whole thing is that, in particular, when people say, well, it's got to be gun laws, we need more gun laws. Well, if you look at it, there hasn't been an increase in pro Second Amendment legislation passing overall. It's largely been in the areas, in particular in the areas where there's been more gun violence or more violence involving firearms. It's been the gun laws have gotten stricter. What changed was all of a sudden, like I said, you started decriminalizing crime, and then letting criminals back out on the street and telling people basically there's no consequences for harming your fellow citizen. And then lo and behold, what happens? People wind up harming their fellow citizens because they realize there's going to be no consequences.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, we saw that with Judge Cuomo, or excuse me, Governor Cuomo up there in New York last week. Remember, they want to do gun reform. So what are they going to do? They're going to ignore that they've made it incredibly easy to commit gun crimes in New York, and they're going to try and stop guns coming in from out of state because, once again, it's the tool's fault, not the individual.
Well, I just love, and the best argument against that is this. Okay, so if the mere access to, or the ease of access to purchasing a firearm is the sole determiner, the primary determiner of the amount of violence involving firearms in a community, then why isn't there more violence involving firearms in the communities where they say these guns are coming from?
Well, you see, because the guns are well behaved at home. It's not until they run away that they decide to be bad.
There you go. Those bad runaway guns.
Bad runaway guns. Because people didn't raise their guns correctly in those other communities. So they ran to the inner city. That's really what happened. So Craig, let's move on here. Kind of closely associated to that story is a study where pandemic gun violence surge is not related to the spike in gun sales. Now, you and I know this, and we've talked about this recently. It was immediately put out by the left side, the left-wing media that, well, the surge in violence is because there's been a surge in gun sales. And we know that's not true. The surge in gun sales was so people could protect themselves from the surge in violence. And that's what we saw. In fact, the point that I gathered from this story that I liked was at the John Hopkins Center for Gun Violence Preventions and Policy. This is Daniel Webster, who heads up that organization, said that we're seeing the majority of gun crimes that are occurring in Chicago's and other large cities is because of the illegal use or possession of firearms. So he immediately sets aside, we're not talking about the people that have used and purchased firearms legally. We're talking about the people that have gained possession of firearms illegally or are using firearms against the law.
Well, once again, and see, the thing about both of these articles that make them stand out to me is one was in Time, one was on Time, and the other one is The Guardian. Now, for those of you who don't read these publications, they are not conservative publications. They're not right-wing, pro-gun publications. But yet in both cases, they're acknowledging that, it wasn't guns or wasn't legal gun purchasers are in fact not the problem, are not the result of the rise in violence involving firearms. But yet and still, in both cases, they completely and utterly, well, at least Time Magazine slightly addressed it when it came to enforcement. But this article in The Guardian just flat out ignores the fact I'm sorry. No, people were not robbing and looting stores because they didn't have a job. They were robbing and looting stores because they could. Because the government told them, governments passed policies saying, unless, and by the way, I know this because I know this happened in Sacramento, we're not going to enforce property crimes. If you break into a store, if you rob a store, we're not going to do anything unless someone's physical being, unless a person, their life or health is in danger. They're not going to enforce. They're actually not going to do anything. And I know that because they actually did that with the mayor of Sacramento. Protesters showed up at his house, were destroying his property, and the incident commander was like, I really can't do anything because no one's life is in danger.
Listen, like you said, this story of The Guardian, it spends 90% of the time telling you that because of their extra gun sales is the reason for extra gun violence, and then at the very end they bury this point by Daniel Webster. So at least a 10% kudo to them for burying it in an asterisk at the end of the story. but this story was set out for. The reason for gun violence is all of the guns. Oh, okay. That's just the guns. Once again, it's back to the gun being the fault.
Well, but no. In this case, they do point out. Well, you're right. In this one, they do point out that once again, it's not the rise. It was not the rise in gun sales. In The Guardian, They said it's not the rise in gun sales that was the cause, because once again, those were legal gun owners, and most of these crimes are being committed by individuals who possess their firearms illegally. So you can't tie the two together. They just don't fit together. But they still tie it to a bunch of stuff that really had nothing to do with it, because we got to fund more government programs, and the other thing is we obviously have to deal with those racists out there who somehow found a way to get black people to shoot black people.
It's just ridiculous, it's amazing. We go through some of these stories, we get some of these points of view, and people want to hear actual analysis from us, and all I want to do is just shake my head and say, that's crap. Just move on. Just don't even bother with it.
Right, but it's important to understand why it's crap, because you're going to be dealing with people with whom you're going to have to deal with this argument, and so it's important to know why it's crap.
Oh, absolutely, it is. And that's what I'm saying. That the first inclination is to shake your head and say it's crap and move on, but nope, that's not why we're here, folks. If we did that, the show would be about 3 minutes long, and Craig and I just laughing, going, "Nope, that's crap. Move on. Next topic. Next topic. That's crap." So we spend the time here with you to talk about the crap. I got something for you that's not crap, Craig, and that's our friends at Gorilla Machining. Gorilla Machining this Friday is our sponsor for the week, and they'll be giving away a parts kit, a lower parts kit for an America's rifle. And with that parts kit, you're also going to get a nice T-shirt and a cool little bag with their name on it and everything. And it's even got a little scanner spot on the back. So we'll show that to you a little later on, maybe. But thank you again to our good friends at Gorilla Machining. Stick around today and through the rest of the week. Maybe on Friday we'll have quiz time, Craig. Maybe we'll do that. we'll review the stories from the week. We'll do a little brief in knowledge, see if people are paying attention. Maybe that'll be part of the
I like
process
that
for giving away.
idea. I like that idea.
There you go. It's called a knowledge check on knowledge, right?
Right,
I'm
right. Just make sure you did your homework.
exactly right. Exactly right. All right, Craig. Let's go to the next story over there in your neck of the woods. We got a couple of stories, so let's talk about this California judge who has decided that the law means nothing to him. That he's going to do what he wants. He's going to legislate from the bench. He's going to be the worst kind of judge we've seen that continues to tear this country apart. Oh, I'm sorry. Am I just opinionating now? So I'll move on from there. Judge rules Smith and Wesson can be sued by shooting victims. So, Greg, have you ever had the pleasure of meeting Judge Kenneth Medell or heard anything that Kenneth Medell has done down there in San Diego before?
I have not read any of his opinions previously, and I might find myself sometime during this week going and looking. But I'm willing to guess. Let me see. He was either a Clinton or an Obama appointee. I'm gonna guess.
It's even worse, Craig. He's a state judge. He is not a federal judge.
Then there you go.
He's an elected Superior Court judge in the state of California. In San Diego area.
Yeah, this case will likely be laughed out of court as soon as it gets to federal court.
Yeah, what happened, folks, is that there was a shooting there in California. I believe one person was killed and a couple others injured. And a Smith and Wesson M15, they call them, I believe it is the Smith and Wesson AR version of their rifle, was used in this shooting, and of course, the gun was illegally used, illegally owned. You can't have this firearm in California to begin with. So a number of laws were already broken before the criminal decided to take a life. And now they're trying, the victims and the survivors are trying to sue Smith & Wesson. Well, we have a law in place. It's been in place for many years now. It's called the Protection of Lawful Commerce in Arms Act. And I look at my notes because I always get that wrong. It's the PLCAA, Protection of Lawful Commerce in Arms Act, which says, by the way, this law existed in many, many forms prior to this, but it had to be spelled out for the anti-gunners. It says, if the gun that I manufactured or the gun that I sold was used in a crime after I made it and sold it and disposed of it correctly and legally, it says you cannot hold the manufacturer or the dealer responsible. Basically, what this says, Craig, is if Ford makes a truck and then you go buy a truck and then you get drunk and drive the truck, it's not Ford's fault. All right. And that's been in place many years in the automotive industry, but we had to spell it out in the firearms industry because everybody tried to blame. What did they try to blame, Greg? The gun. It's the gun's fault. So let's get the person that made the gun and go after them.
Right. It is idiotic. And the reason why it had to specifically be spelled out for firearms manufacturers was because, the goal of multi-millionaires and billionaires like Bloomberg was basically not so much that they ever expected to win any of these lawsuits because, these are individuals who created a product that is constitutionally protected, that was safe and in legal use in 99.9% of their cases. But where individuals decided to illegally take them, illegally modify them in some cases, and utilize them to inflict harm upon other individuals. In every other industry, it's kind of a given that, I can't really go after the manufacturer. If they did everything according to the law, and someone decided to break the law in using their product, you can't really go after the manufacturer for that, or the person who sold it for that, unless for example, they sold it to someone who wasn't supposed to have it, or in the manufacturing of it, there was something that was defective that caused harm. And that's the stupid, idiotic thing about this is this guy basically said, well, we're gonna. This thing can be modified to be an automatic weapon, which I think anyone who understands knows that these are not firearms that are made to be fired as automatic, to fire as automatic weapons. These are civilian semi-automatic versions. But also there is actually absolutely no evidence that this firearm was the firearm utilized in the specific shooting was modified at all. There was no reports that it was modified at all. Nothing that even makes this remotely even relevant. And then he comes back and he says, well, this was marketed to minors and young people as, because they marketed to them, which by the way, they didn't market to minors. Oh yeah. By having them in video games, which I don't know that Smith & Wesson actually does that they actually.
You don't have the Smith & Wesson Kill 'Em Up video game? Oh, yeah, that's a great one. Smith's been putting that out for years, yeah.
I'm like, maybe you need to be talking to video game manufacturers because I don't know that Smith & Wesson actually like goes and pays to have their firearm put in these video games.
No.
I could be wrong, but my point is he literally just pulled this out of his rear end in order to come up with a reason that they could be sued.
This is a state level judge, is a county level judge down there, but it's, he's a state judge that is again legislating from the bench. This is going to take all of somebody to type up the findings of his ruling there, put it in a new complaint, walking across the street to federal court, and then have it dismissed. Well, it's taking up time. And it's taking up the court's the court's valuable resources.
I would very much like to see, when it comes to things like qualified immunity, I would like to see a law passed in a place like California where if you are an elected official and you knowingly, I believe in this case, you knowingly violate the law or violate Constitution in a ruling, I believe you ought to be able to be held civilly liable, and I believe that you should be subject to removal from your elected position, because I see it happen all too often right here in California, where, in particular, whether it's judges or it's elected officials, basically know what they're doing is against the law. They know it's a violation of the Constitution. And yet they pass it anyway, and they figure, well, the people, if they want their rights, they're going to have to spend their own money. They're going to have to go to court and fight us. By the way, we're going to use their tax dollars, fight us in order to make sure that their rights are protected. And that's just crap.
Yeah, and that's exactly what we should see. Instead of trying to take qualified immunity away from police officers and give them no immunity whatsoever in the course of their duties. And again, I have no issue with police officers being held responsible anytime they violate the Constitution or they violate the law. And that's what it says. That's what qualified immunity says. And that's what should apply to these judges and elected officials. If you decide, screw it, because I have a personal agenda, I'm going to allow this lawsuit to go through rather than follow the federal guidelines or the state guidelines, then you should be held accountable too. Oh, and by the way, you got to pay for that out of your own money to defend yourself. You don't get to use state or government funds to do that.
Exactly.
So loads of crap. So Judge Bedell, we'll see you voted out soon, or he'll be the next governor, whichever happens over there in California. Craig, next story we got on here. Let's see. Oh, this is good stuff. California Hotel. Now, are you familiar with let's see, Marjorie Taylor Greene and Matt Gaetz? They're moving around the country doing continuing to do these America First events, kind of like a Trump rally style. We're going around to the Republican areas and continue to keep the base, ready to move forward at the midterms and at the next presidential election. Well,
these are folks from your neck of the woods, from Florida and Georgia.
Well, they're very I would say very popular. I was going to say powerful. Matt Gaetz has gotten to be powerful, but then he's under some examination from the FBI, which, by the way, has gone silent and gone quiet. They no longer have any facts to talk about with him. Whatever. I think he got alleged something with an underage kid. Evidently, now that Epstein's gone, they want to go after the Republicans for this. And again, no evidence. I'm not saying we don't investigate it. We investigate all allegations, but this one does not seem to have an end to it coming at any time soon. And then Marjorie Taylor Greene, which just nobody likes because she's just some redneck girl from Georgia. And I keep seeing references to her where she continues, and it was in this story as well, Craig, where, she continues to compare people to the Holocaust and she doesn't know what she's talking about. Well, I think she really does. I think she really does understand the Holocaust more than the writers do when she says things along the lines of, Yeah, I'm not talking about the vaccination. We're going to go door to door and mark people that don't have the vaccinations. That's much the same thing we did to the Jews, putting stars on them before we put them in trains and sent them away to camps. She's pretty accurate there on both those facts. Now, obviously, we have not sent anybody away on a train for a vaccination, at least not yet, anyway.
Well, it's the double standard where on the right you are not allowed to be hyperbolic. If you say something, it is taken literally. You know, literally you are saying that this is the case. And on the left, they take hyperbolic statements by the left and they treat them as though they were fact.
Yes.
So they get to say anything. Like it's like, oh yeah, that happened. Like, oh yeah, no, they did a Nazi salute. They'll say, oh well, there was someone at a Republican thing. They had like a Nazi rally, and then they literally will report that it was a Nazi rally, even though it was nothing close to that, right? Even though there was no basis in truth for what they were saying. That's what the left. That's what they get. That's what the left gets away with. They get away with saying all sorts of horrid and nasty things about Republicans. But when Republicans do the exact same thing back, are hyperbolic, not even remotely close to, as exaggerated as what the left does, then we get hit for it. And that's what you have in the case of Marjorie Taylor Greene. Greene Taylor, or
MTG, Marjorie Taylor Greene.
Yeah, see, my attitude is when you start having like three names, you get what you get when I'm trying to remember it. I'm sorry.
Yeah, and I'm not sure that she ever presented herself as Marjorie Taylor Greene. I think that was something that those other people in Georgia were doing against her. They wanted to call her three names because they don't call her Marjorie Taylor. Hey, Marjorie Taylor, how are you doing? It's just I don't know where that came from. It's when you try to make somebody evil, you use all three names, right? Like John Wilkes Booth and Lee Harvey Oswald, and that's the way you go with all three names. Or when your mother called you when you were bad, it was all three names. Remember?
Yeah. See, that's why Craig Joseph DeLuz. Oh, man, I'm in trouble.
Exactly right. So the reason for this story, Craig, is they were coming out to I believe it's Orange County, California, out there, and they were going to be having one of these rallies. And in fact, they were going to having the rally in Laguna Hills. Is Laguna Hills in Orange County? Does that sound right, Craig?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. So at the Pacific Hills Banquet and Event Center, they had booked it. They were coming out there. They're coming out there later this week. Towards the end of the week, they were going to be having one of their America First rallies. Well, the general manager out there, Mr. Javad Mirtavusi. I like to call out the names of ass clowns. So Javad, that's you today. Javad Mirtavusi. Once he realized it was an America First rally, he said, "Oh no, we're staying clear of that. We're canceling it." So what I hear, Craig, is a foreigner. Yeah, I mean, Javad Mirtavusi doesn't sound like the most Laguna Hills common name that I could think of, but he decides, oh, that's some controversy there. I'm a liberal. I'm not having that here. And by the way, in one of the biggest Republican areas in the state of California, there in Orange County, decides we're not having that. We're canceling it. Well, Craig, whatever happened to you got to bake that gay cake or whatever the controversy was? We all have to do these things. Everybody can't do it. We can't discriminate. And here you go. You got the Pacific Hills Banquet and Event Center deciding he's going to discriminate because he doesn't like somebody's politics.
Well, unfortunately, the way the law speaks, you actually can discriminate based on someone's politics. I hate to say it, but especially if your politics are conservative, then they're most definitely allowed to discriminate against you. Right now, Orange County in California is in a real battle. It used to be the most conservative county in all of California. It's the home of the Ronald Reagan Library. Yeah. It's just, once again, it used to be the hotbed for conservatism in California. It's not anymore. In fact, Orange County is very much split, and the supervisors there are majority Democrat. The Orange County sheriff is not the most pro-Second Amendment sheriff in the entire country. He's probably not even the most pro-gun sheriff, not even in the top half in California. It's really been a battle. As many have left California, they've left Orange County because of of the state's overall business climate and economic climate, and people are moving to greener pastures. But in this particular case, this is an individual who probably is like, well, we know what happens. And I've seen this happen, by the way, with gun events all over California, where people are trying to do events for things like fundraisers for groups like Friends of the NRA and whatnot. And you have venues, you have the anti-gun community or the liberal community calling up these venues and letting them know, hey, you're having a hate group, or you're having a group that promotes firearm violence is going to be having an event there. If you continue to have this event, we're going to not show up. We're going to make sure we're going to try and shut you down. And so in some cases, it may be an ideological reason why they do it. In other cases, it's because they are being pressured by ideological opponents, and their attitude is, yeah, we'd rather not just because we don't want to get shut down. And there is an active campaign against venues that would dare host anything like this. Heck, not even just host this. Look at what happened when the New York Times editor decided to allow Tom Cotton to publish an op-ed there, which, by the way, was totally reasoned, totally sound. You don't necessarily have to agree with the points in it, but it was, here's a sitting U.S. senator puts a reasonable commentary in there, and you had an uprising there at the New York Times, and until eventually someone got one, the person who put it in there got fired.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the nature of it, right, Craig? If you're liberal, you get to do what you want. You get to ride the center of the fence. You get to ride both sides of it. You get to make the decisions any way you want to and justify it. If you're conservative, you get pushed off to one side. You get to be discriminated against, and you just have to deal with it. Well, that's what's going on there with Marjorie Taylor Greene and Matt Gaetz being told they can't come to this California community. And I believe we will not hear the end of this until later in the week. I believe there will be more to this that will happen, and there'll be some repercussions. I know that Orange County has become co-opted with people from Los Angeles County moving there, as it continues to grow and grow. But we'll see how this goes. So let's
exactly because they messed up LA County, so they're moving to Orange County.
Exactly right. Craig, as the host for the day, I'm going to make the decision that the next story, rather than try and squeeze it in the middle amount of time, I want to push that one to tomorrow so we can spend the due amount of time that story deserves. When we're talking about the protests down in Cuba. So follow us tomorrow for that. Before we get into the parting shot, though, one last time, our good friends from Gorilla Machining are going to be giving away a lower parts kit to an AR rifle and a T-shirt that to go with your lower parts kit. So that'll be on Freedback Friday, where we'll also be doing a knowledge check based on the stories from the week. That's our new thing. There will be a quiz, so stick around. There will be a quiz. Craig, let's move right into our parting shot for today.
Well, I just find the whole point behind this is this. Look, so on January 6th, I missed where there were F-15s and nuclear weapons that were being utilized in the insurrection that took place at the U.S. Capitol. Because according to the president, if you're gonna overthrow the government, that's pretty much what it's gonna take. And clearly, these Democrats seem to believe that was what was about to happen.
Listen, if you go up there and join House of Congress, and there's, 500 and some odd senators and congressmen, and then you've got all your cabinet members sitting there also. I don't think any nukes or F-15s are going to need that, Craig, because we saw that evidently a raucous crowd with less than 6 firearms could take the whole building. It's what we see right here. We see a bunch of cowards laying down on the floor, making themselves a media, statement.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's all that really was. It was about a media statement, and I wasn't there, so I'm not gonna. I don't know exactly how they were. Probably fearful, but then again, they were probably assuming that this was a crowd, much like their Antifa BLM counterparts. Right. Who were peacefully protesting, because they peacefully protest.
Listen, they're obviously down behind the pews and the seats here for the media effect. But listen, the real reason a lot of them are down there, and I bet you there's a lot of poop and pants laying down right there now as well, because they thought to themselves, wow, Somebody finally called us on our bull crap. Here we go. We've been up here lying to the American people for years and years and years, doing what we want because we're protected, we're isolated, they're the elite. Holy crap, they're at the door? They're at the door. Okay. All right, I'm done. Dear Lord, please forgive me while I poop in my pants because they're coming with the guillotines to take my head. Because that's what was going through their head.
If I suspect that a crowd of people are coming in to get, let me tell you something. I'm going out swinging. If they're coming to get me, they're gonna get some. As my old coach used to say, you got to bring some to get some.
Yeah, but you know what? That's not how cowards go out. This is how cowards go out, hiding behind other people.
Yeah, kind of pathetic. But hey, it's a Democratic Party. What do you expect?
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah. Well, listen, I want to thank everybody for joining us today here on the Rundown. We'll be back tomorrow for Taco Tuesday. I might even actually bring some tacos in with me during the program. Well, I'll let you do a lot of talking, and I'll just munch on a taco. So,
okay, you do soft tacos or crunchy tacos?
Oh, it's got to be street tacos. You know, tortilla, meat, cilantro,
I can't have you crunching in my ear while I'm trying.
Oh yeah, no, soft taco. Yeah.
All right, excellent.
So thank you for joining us.
Make sure you do the.
Oh, you do it. Go ahead.
I said I might have to do the same thing.
Oh, there we go.
There you go. All right, folks. Well, hey, that's going to be it. Remember, like, share, subscribe. Tell your friends about the Rundown. It's the place to be.
Like, share, subscribe, and we'll see you on Taco Tuesday.
All right. I'll let you later.